magic in the air. Wands roll around us, cast away our care. Friends in the hallways, adventures we find. Spells and enchantments, trouble on our mind. That's so wizard, oh, 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 oh. Life is a spell we know. We're casting joy and glow, oh, oh, that's so wizard.
8 o'clock on the dot, and what do you know? We're all racist. Thanks, Wizards of the Coast, for stirring that pot. What's up, my nerds? It is I, the OG GM, coming to you live from Site B. Major weird weather, fire weather, windy stuff going on. It's the 11th day of December 2024, which means you need to get me a Christmas present if you haven't yet. How y'all doing today? Yep. You know, I went to bed last night and I was like, wow, Wizards hasn't really done anything dumb this week. What am I going to talk about tomorrow? Well, sure enough, Wizards went and it was double dumb. But before we get to this, let's just check where the money is in regards to the Elon Musk purchasing Hasbro. Hasn't happened yet, guys. And despite the major lawsuit being levied at Hasbro right now, stock is up. Stock is up $20 from where it was last year. It's still not where it was when I purchased it at $100 a share, but it's $70 a share right now. So that's pretty decent. I still probably wouldn't sell my shares until they go over 100 because I want to make back what I spent, the remaining that I have. But it's okay. So despite Elon Musk and despite the lawsuit, there seems to be still doing fine. Let's see how well they do after this. So once again, Wizards of the Coast and those who are Wizards of the Coast adjacent are pushing the false agenda about Drow elves and the racism of Drow elves and how Drizzt is a racist character. And they need to solve the controversial problem of Drizzt and Drow before they can do a Legend of Drizzt television show. There are no plans to make a Legend of Drizzt television show or any television show involving Drow or Drow adjacent or Dark Elves. And it has very little to do with the supposed racism, but a lot to do with like copyrights and who owns what and where and how. And, because so person X owns the idea of the Drow is specific to Wizards. Person Y owns Drizzt, but the book company also owns Drizzt, and Salvatore also owns Drizzt, and Wizards also owns Drizzt. And the term Drow predates Wizards using it. So there's a lot of stuff that, above my pay grade. But yeah, there are no plans to make a Legend of Drizzt television show. There never have been any plans to make a Legend of Drizzt television show. The closest we'll probably ever get to seeing Drow elves on TV is either people doing a live play of Baldur's Gate or something, or that Secret Level television show if they do a second season. So unless something changes, there's nothing on the 2025 docket for a Drow, Drizzt, whatever television show, or just any even D&D television show, because Hasbro has said they're not making a D&D television show or any more D&D movies. So other than the possibility of Secret Level or Baldur's Gate or something, yeah, that's not happening. But we want to reinforce the false narrative of the racism of Drizzt and the Drow. And that is a false narrative that because Salvatore was weak, decided to get on board with. Oh, yes, my creation is racist. I'm sorry that for the past 20, 30 years, I've been telling people about this creation and how wonderful he is and how he's not about racism and how he's a strong positive. No, I never said that. He's racist. Yes, I know it. I admit it. Yes. This, of course, follows on the tales of the Lord of the Rings being a right-wing manifesto. So we've got Lord of the Rings, and anybody who reads Lord of the Rings being right-wing jackasses. But if you play a Drow or read the Drow books, you're a left-wing racist. Now, I don't know what that means. Now, I can't speak for anybody else. I know Wizards of the Coast continues to try to stir the pot about how their history has been a history of racism and that Drow were a racist stereotype and people were offended by Drow. I don't know a single person in my 40 some odd years of playing who was ever offended by Drow. People played Dro like hotcakes. They were the most popular character for such a long time because of Drizzt and because of the books. Everybody wanted to be a Dro. Everybody wanted to play a Dro. They got the extra special benefits and all the other stuff. Everybody's like, Dro were just like it. You could not play a D&D game without at least one token Dro for years, for decades. Hundreds and hundreds of people all over the planet playing Dro, men playing Dro, women playing Dro heroes, playing Dro villains, Dro. My favorite Dro are Chris Perkins' Dro, because he says the Dro are French, which I guess makes a lot of sense. But yeah, nobody I ever played with ever complained about the Dro being racist or anything even negative. They were just cool elves that you could play that got you extra abilities. I don't even think people played because they were dark elves or had the purple hair or whatever. It was just, I got extra abilities if I played a Dro. Yeah, so don't know. I never met anybody who was offended by it. I don't know anybody who was offended by it. I've played for decades all over the planet with 2, 3, 4, 5,000 people probably in my many years of being a DM and a player. And yeah, Dros were wonderful. Everybody loved them. Nobody said, this is racist. I fucking hate this. And I played with tons of people who were POCs and disabled and LGBTQT and identified as men, identified as women, identified as something else. I played with furries. I played with billionaires. I played with homeless people. Nobody but Wizards of the Coast and Wizards of the Coast adjacent wants to continue to stir the pot, but now they're stirring the pot in relation to a non-existent television show that never has been planned and probably never will be planned. Now, in order to facilitate this mythology, Wizards of the Coast today has to bag on Wizards of the Coast yesterday, right? Because Dro appeared in the Giants series for the first time, right? Against the Giants. So somewhere in the 80s, I think. When did they appear? Let's see. Against the Giants. So 1980. It's 1980, 1981, 1982, right? It was the first time Dro showed up. Now, they were supposed to be a one-off. They weren't supposed to be the huge, big bad guys, major plot things that they became. They were just supposed to be part of the story of the Against the Giants Temple of Elemental Evil storyline, but they were never meant to be as big. But they were popular for some reason, so Gary said, okay, run with it. Let's see what happens. Wasn't my plan. Gary had a completely different plan for how the Against the Giants Temple of Elemental Evil storyline was going to end. But they ran with the Dro because people liked him, and then they just kept getting more popular, and then, Gary twundled off and left TSR and Giants, but whatever. So since 1980, they've been popping around. TSR and then Wizards of the Coast when they bought Dungeons and Dragons. So Dro were in 3. Dro were in 3.5. Dro were in all the things that connect to 3 and 3.5. Dro were in 4. And Dro were in 5 in 2014. So as of 2014, Dro were still racist stereotypes. So when 5e started, Wizards was still pushing this racist agenda by having the Dro remain relatively unchanged. There was a few minor modifications, but other than that, they still were from the Underdark. Loth was still a thing. They still had special cool abilities. They were still dark elves because of WoW, and whatever. All the girls had, cosplaying as Dro. And that was fine until Tasha? Then Wizards of the Coast decided, oh, wait, maybe people are, this is racist. We got to change Dro. So they started changing Dro, and they started changing Dro some more. And then they started getting up on their little podium going, well, we're racist. Dro are racist, blah, 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 blah. So Wizards of the Coast started calling Wizards of the Coast past racist and anybody who played before this line of demarcation as racist. If you played a Dro elf character before X, you were racist. But we changed Dros, so if you played a Dro character after X, you're okay. And anybody who played Dro before that needs to leave the hobby, because here at Wizards of the Coast, we're all about diversity. Remember, white guys can't leave the hobby fast enough. We ourselves, Wizards of the Coast, were racist because until 2000 and something, we were making Dro the way they've always made Dro. Then suddenly, kablooey, they changed. We're not racist anymore because we've changed Dro. Hypocritically, we made them worse because they never were racist, but now we've changed them. So we ourselves, Wizards of the Coast, was racist, but now we're not. Wizards of the Coast is all about inclusion, all about diversity. I will remind you that everybody who is a major part of Wizards of the Coast, from person in charge to the major creatives to Crawford, Perkins, Todd, that other guy, Jerry, are all white dudes. Wizards of the Coast is 80% white people, white men. There's a few POCs. There's, Mackenzie. We're not sure what Mackenzie is. There's a couple others, I think. I mean, we don't know how many are left at Wizards after the massive firings, but I assume there's at least one. Mackenzie, if nobody else. So despite, white guys can't leave the hobby fast enough, despite the problem of Dro and the problem of Wizards continuing to have Dro, and despite the diversity that Wizards of the Coast wants to push, Wizards of the Coast is primarily a bunch of old white dudes. Still. You know who made 2026, 2024, 2025, 6th edition Dungeons and Dragons? A bunch of white guys. A bunch of white guys who are telling you we're racist for having Dro. Dro were a controversial problem for the past 30 years. And we're trying to get out of the hobby because we perpetrate the false narrative and we want people to be represented by Dro. So we changed Dro, hypocritically making them worse than they were before. Mind you, until we said they were racist, nobody said they were racist. Now, I can't speak for your personal adventures. I don't know what your experiences was. I can only speak for the decades I've played and the hundreds of thousands of people I've played with, and not a single person ever brought this up. But I'm one person. I don't know. Maybe your mileage was different. Maybe you did see this happen. Maybe you live in another state, another country, another time zone, another planet. I don't know. Maybe you saw this happen. But I don't know anybody who saw this happen, who experienced this. And Wizards of the Coast would like us to address the controversial so we can make a TV show that's never going to happen. The closest we're going to get to ever is either if we see some Baldur's Gate lives play, or if they show up in season 2 of Secret Level on Amazon, because Hasbro Wizards has said they're not making any more TV shows or movies, guys. So there never will be a Legend of Drizzt TV show unless Hasbro sells Drizzt to somebody else. Anybody see the Secret Level Dungeons and Dragons thingy? I mean, the animation on all of them were great. I mean, the second to last one, it was so good, I wasn't sure it was animation. It was really, really good. But story-wise, no fucking sense. It starts in the middle and ends in the middle. So there's something going on that happened before the story started, and then the story continues, but nothing's explained. Who are these people? Why are they here? What are they doing? Who is this? What is that? Who's this kid? What are they doing? God, this looks a lot like Diablo. Okay, now we're in a thing, and these guys are chasing them, but there's a lich. Why is a lich with them? And how is this person able to take a lich out? And then suddenly there's a gold dragon, but then the gold dragon turns into spoilers, and then suddenly another thing happens, and then it ends. And that was pretty much every episode. But the D&D episode is the first one, and it's about the cult of the dragon and Tiamat and a group of adventurers, and I have no idea what's going on, other than the fact I was like, hey, this looks a lot like the cinematics from Diablo 2. Like, yeah, this is pretty much just a ripoff of Diablo 2. I was kind of disappointed in Secret Level. Now, moving on to the brilliance that is back to the topic du jour, the brilliance of Wizards of the Coast. The brilliance of Wizards of the Coast is all about diversity and, we're not repeating the mistakes of the past. But in the same breath, releases art like this. We don't want to perpetrate the symbolism of our previous products. We don't want people to continue to think that we are doing anything racist or derogatory. Mind you, we have a picture of a bunch of kobolds being attacked by a mechanical chicken that is pooping on them. So poop jokes are okay. Portraying gnomes as silly little pranksters who make mechanical chickens that poop on people is okay. But Dro are bad. This is what they think people want to see for Dragonlance. Now, I will say, in Wizards of Defense, let's face it, there is some silliness in Dragonlance. I mean, Dragonlance gave us Kender, which are the most ridiculous race ever. They're just nonstop comedy relief. Dragonlance gave us Gully Dwarves, and Dragonlance gave us Tinker Gnomes. 3 relatively ridiculous comedy races. So the idea that a Tinker Gnome would build traps in their house, sure. The idea that the Tinker Gnome would build those traps to resemble practical jokes like the giant teeth, sure. Wizards of the Coast wants to be all mature now and, push this new imagery of, everybody's the same, everybody's equal, nobody's derogatory, nobody's stupid, nobody's silly. Every class can be whatever you want. Every race can be whatever you want. We're all about diversity. We're all about inclusion. We're all about making people feel safe and welcome in our comfy new Dungeons and Dragons universe, but we're okay with making poop jokes. Here's a metal chicken pooping on some kobolds. That's okay. Oh, I got a comment. Hey, lobster, unbreaded. From Michael Connor. Oh, okay. Thanks, Mike. I don't know what that means, but yes, lobsters. Okay, yeah. So if you have access to Amazon, you can watch Secret Level. You can watch the first episode, which is a Dungeons and Dragons episode. Makes no sense. The second one made no sense. The third one was goofy. It was probably my favorite. But again, it starts in the middle and ends, but it's the only one that really tells a complete story. And the rest of them are like, these are animation great. I don't get it. The Pac-Man one was probably the weirdest one. It was like, this is Pac-Man. How is this Pac-Man? And the last one, or the second to last one, had the best animation. That was just amazing. I was like, wow. Yeah. So if you have Amazon, it's free to watch on Amazon. If you don't have Amazon, it's on YouTube. You can watch it. So I know there's a lot of people out there who were hoping Elon would ride in on his multi-billion-dollar horse and save Hasbro, because they think that he would then somehow change D&D instantly. But this doesn't look like it's going to happen unless the stock drops. There is no plans to make a Wizards of the Coast Legend of Drizzt adventure because Hasbro isn't making TV shows and movies anymore, guys. So yeah, that's not going to happen. And Hasbro Wizards would like to continue to perpetuate the myth of the Drow, therefore calling in themselves and their own hypocrisy that they're racist, because it's still a bunch of white dudes telling us that, we're racist for playing Drow. Did you feel offended by Drow in your years of playing D&D? I don't know, man. I don't know. Also, because it's the end of the year, we're getting to the, 50th anniversary. Who was the best DM? Who was the best player? Who was the best adventurer? Who has the best insight on the hobby? Who's done the most? Blah, blah, blah. So we're going to get a couple of YouTubers who want to tell you about how they're better than you, because that's just the way it is. And, then we'll have some gift guides. And then the 50th anniversary will end still without an official t-shirt. There is something close on D&D Beyond, but I looked at it, and it's not really an official D&D 50th anniversary t-shirt. It's just a t-shirt that they released on D&D Beyond. That's okay, because we're all about metal chickens that poop. on kobolds. But what do you expect? That's so wizards!
Laughing aloud now, magic in the air. Wands swirl around us, cast away our care. Friends in the hallways, adventures we find. Spells and enchantments, trouble on our mind. That's so wizard, oh, 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 oh. Life is a spell we know. We're casting joy in